Hi guys, welcome back to the Home and Homestead. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new, I'm Rebecca. Today we're going to be heading to the kitchen and we'll do a from scratch baking project. We'll be making some homemade graham crackers. These are really delicious, just to snack on, have as a sweet little treat. You can also make the classic s'mores with them or crumple them up to make a homemade graham cracker crust as well. Now this is a golden honey and cinnamon flavored graham cracker, and I hope you enjoy the recipe. So let's head to the kitchen and put together a few ingredients for making our homemade graham crackers. So in a large mixing bowl, I have cups of flour. Now this is a whole wheat flour. I used hard white wheat berries to create this fresh milled flour. You can also use an all-purpose flour or store-bought whole wheat as well. To this I'm going to add of wheat bran. So if you watch my previous video on when I made my homemade raisin bran muffins, I like to buy my wheat bran in bulk and then usually have a little bit extra that won't fit inside of the container that I keep in my pantry. And when I do that, I usually like to make my homemade raisin bran muffins and some homemade graham crackers. So now I'm going to use up the rest of that extra that didn't fit in that container. So this is a cup of wheat bran. So when you mix that together, you have a nice brown colored mixture as the base of your homemade graham cracker. Now to that we're going to add brown sugar, one teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Then I'll add a half teaspoon of salt. I'll just mix these dry ingredients together. Now we'll add butter that's been coarsely chopped. I'll take a pastry cutter. I'm just going to cut that butter right into our flour mixture. We're going to cut this butter until we have nice pea-sized pieces of butter. I will set this off to the side. And in a small mixing bowl, I'm going to add milk and a half cup of honey. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just going to whisk that milk and honey together until this honey has dissolved. There we go. Let's bring back our big mixing bowl with our flour, sugar, and butter mixture in here, and we'll combine our milk, honey, and vanilla into here. And we'll give it a good stir to create our graham cracker dough. And once we combine all of these ingredients, I like to go in with my hands and squeeze the dough, kind of knead it a little bit. We end up with the firm and kind of sticky dough. So then I like to cut it in half, and then I'll make 2 disc shape pieces of dough. I'm just going to cover them in cling wrap or saran wrap and place them in the refrigerator. Well, I like to let them sit in the refrigerator for at least an hour to even overnight. So this is something you can maybe start in the morning and go about your day and then come back later. You can roll these out and make your graham crackers. You just want this dough to sit in the refrigerator so that all that nice whole grain wheat and the wheat bran can absorb some of this moisture and make a nice workable dough for our graham crackers. So I'll just put these in the refrigerator for about an hour to overnight. And then we'll come back for the next step. All right, so our prepared graham cracker dough has been sitting in the refrigerator for a few hours. So it has a nice solid shape to it. What we're going to do is place this onto a well-floured surface. And I'll cut it in half again. Now the fun part. Let's roll it out into the shape that we'd like for our graham crackers. So you're going to want to roll these out till they're nice and thin. The thinner you go, the faster they'll bake and the more crisp they will be. So just keep that in mind. You can use a bench scraper, maybe a pastry or a pizza cutter. I have a little pasta cutter that has a pattern to it. That'll make a nice wavy edge and helps to break up the graham crackers like you would find from store-bought ones. So now let's just make, I'm gonna try to shoot for about a rectangle. Then this is a little fork type of a tool from a candy making kit. You can also just use a regular fork. You could also use a toothpick. Something just to poke some little holes in. And then I go back and I just lightly score the cracker. So here's the first graham cracker. And I'll put this on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet or baking sheet. And I'll keep creating the rest of them here. All right, let me keep rolling out this dough and creating our graham cracker shaped pieces that'll be baked to make our delicious homemade graham crackers. I like my homemade graham crackers to be more on the crispy side, so I like to shoot closer to an 1/8 inch thickness, but if you want a little more of a slight chew and a little thicker of a graham cracker, then you would go closer to a 1/4 inch thickness. All right, so I've used up half of the dough and I've made a dozen full-size homemade graham crackers. I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees. So I'm going to bake these for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'll check them right around 10 to see if they're cooked through and not over browning. So let's get these into the oven to bake. And while those are baking, I'll continue to roll out the remainder of the dough. Here I have the first 2 batches of homemade graham crackers. The one to the left is the first set that I put into the oven, and I had rolled them out to the thinner, more crispy result thickness of about an 1/8 inch, and the graham crackers to the right I allowed to be a little bit thicker. So these are closer to a 1/4 inch thick, and these will have a little more of a chewy consistency. And I get them off the parchment paper as soon as I can so they can cool right on this cooling rack. So now I'm going to allow these to cool completely, and we'll come back and have a closer look and a taste at homemade graham crackers. All right, well here we have our homemade graham crackers. Now depending on how thickly you roll them out and how long you bake them for, be more of a chewy type of a graham crackery cookie type of a texture, versus if you bake them a bit longer, then they start to have more of that crispy crunch, more like a store-bought graham cracker. And since I cut them out to the rectangular shape using the pasta cutting wheel and use a little fork-shaped tool to make the little dots, it has a similar appearance to the store-bought, which is kind of cute. Now you can use these to make s'mores or just to have as a fun little treat. You can break them up and serve them with milk as another option to cold cereal. You can also crumble this up, and this makes a wonderful homemade graham cracker crust. So you could do some no-bake cheesecakes and other such torts and recipes with this as well. So let me just show you a little bit closer the texture of these homemade graham crackers. So since I put the score in with that pizza cutter or pastry cutter, it just wants to break along that line that we created with that score. You can see the different layers of these homemade graham crackers. This has all that wonderful whole wheat and honey flavor that you get when you think of a graham cracker. Well, it's really fun to make recipes at home for items that you would otherwise have to buy at the store. That way you can really control the ingredients, and if there are certain flavors that you really enjoy, you can make sure that they shine through. So hopefully this homemade graham cracker recipe with some wonderful whole grain and honey flavors is something that you'll like to try as well. If you'd like more ideas or inspiration on other homemade things you can make from scratch at home, be sure to check out my recipes in the kitchen playlist. And if you're really into baking and would like more ideas for those type of items, I have a playlist on that as well. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so yet, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. So please be sure to hit that subscribe button below and continue to watch my channel, The Home and Homestead, for some more homemade, homegrown, and home-style inspiration. Well, I surely hope that you're having a great day. See you next time. Take care.